Hi, I'm Srinivas Vakati. This is High Impact Entrepreneur Podcast. In this podcast, I discuss with business owners and professionals to help you build your dream company. Put right systems and processes in place so it can grow without you. In this episode, I'm interviewing international coach and a consultant, Senthil Raj, where we discuss how to live an inspired life and get your employees aligned and inspired with their jobs. Senthil is a peak performance coach and the author of international best-selling book Compulsive Living to Conscious Living. He is the only Demartini method and values facilitator in India and one of the 4 in Asia. So let's get started. Hi Senthil, welcome to my podcast High Impact Entrepreneurs. I'm very curious, what motivated you to quit your job and choose to be an entrepreneur?
Hi, Srini. Good morning to you and everybody on the call. And thanks for inviting me for your show. What motivated me to start my journey with John was, I was on a corporate world. I was working with one of the largest MNCs in India for more than a decade, right? And but somehow, though it appeared like outwardly everything was going fine in terms of having a good house, car, family, everything appeared to be going very well, and I've been getting promotions and growth in my organization. Somehow inside, I was feeling a sense of unfulfillment, a sense of lack of meaning, or in very simple terms, I was not happy, right? So what happened is, with passage of time, I did not give a keen attention to it, and it started affecting my health. The stress started mounting up because of the agitations in the mind due to a highly demanding job, and therefore I started getting into lifestyle diseases. I was diabetic. And there was one particular point when I was about to enter the boardroom of my company for a very important meeting, and stress was so high and the diabetes peaked out and I was almost going to collapse, kind of a thing. And after that, I was on leave for 3 months. And that's when I started my spiritual journey. Okay. I met my spiritual teacher and my whole life changed after that. So 2 key learnings which I got from my spiritual teacher, Mahatria, is first thing is you can never ever get the world right. All you can get right is your own self. So I started my introversion, traveling deep inside me by inner concentration and meditation. I started, finding my inner peace. And once I found my inner peace, like a magic, the world around me turned from total chaos and agitation to peace, a more harmonious place. So that was the first thing. And the second thing he said was, if you want to find your true economic worth, you need to be an entrepreneur. And you cannot allow somebody else to determine your worth, which is your organization when you're employed, right? So the second thing started me to set on finding what's my true purpose in life and what exactly I want to do with my life. So when I was on the journey on my purpose, Mahatria calls it Swadharma. In short, what is purpose? It's like finding your true highest talents, which is very unique to you, blessed by the universe. And how can you add your life experiences and share it with the world to make the world a better place, to help somebody else up-level their life from more compulsive living to conscious living. So that's the understanding of purpose. And when I was working towards that and more or less kind of, clear about what I wanted to do, I wanted to help people move from a compulsive, stressed, victimized, unhappy living to a more centered, conscious, happy, and fulfilling life. And that's when I met Dr. John Demartini in National Achievers Congress, and his speech was absolutely resonating to me, and I decided I'm going to travel with this guy for a long time.
Okay.
That's how I bumped into this guy.
Okay, so when did you choose to be an entrepreneur? What was the defining moment?
Yeah, the defining moment was when I realized that I've been giving all my life to work, and when I fell ill, the one who were around me was the family and not the work. And therefore, I started questioning myself, am I getting the priorities in life right? That time, my priority in life was first was work, then was family, and last was me. So from the morning I wake up till I go to bed, all the time I gave for work. So there was hardly any time for family and zero time for me. And that's the reason my whole life got messed up. So I started totally turning the entire thing upside down. So first I said I had to take care of myself, my health, my physical health, mental health, emotional, spiritual health. And only when I'm happy and fulfilled and harmonious with myself, I'll be able to take care of my family. And once I'm fine and family is fine, that's the state I'll be able to give 100% to my work and make a difference to the world. That was the moment I decided, yes, I need to become an entrepreneur to find my true economic worth and to live my purpose, transforming lives.
Right. Even I meet many people whose top priority is work. And after years of working, they realize that they have wasted their life.
Yeah, thankfully I realized it. In my 40s, in fact, in my late 30s, I didn't have to wait all the way. So at least I have some life left for me to live.
Correct. So you have also written a book called Compulsive Living to Conscious Living.
Yes.
So what exactly is the book about?
Beautiful. So this book is essentially my life journey on how I was living a compulsive living based on socially injected values, which is socially injected priorities in life. Like, when we grow up as a kid, it's almost not just in India, across the world, this is how mostly people are brought up, saying that you need to go to school, get good grades, go to a good college, get good grades, get a high paying job, get married and be happy. And that's not the recipe of life. What I figured out was I followed the social injections, which comes from parents, preachers, teachers, friends, societies. So got into college, did my post-graduation, did my MBA in agribusiness. And then I got into this job. Initially, it was a marketing job and then into a banking job. It was pretty much high paying, so good lifestyle. But it was not something what I wanted. So I was actually living somebody else's life.
Okay.
Till a moment when the universe gave a psychological slap by way of a diabetic illness. That's when I woke up and said, oh shit, I'm living somebody else's life. It's not my life. And then I set myself to go and figure out what exactly I want to do with my life, which is nothing but the journey to find your purpose. And then what I figured out was my purpose is to use my unique talents of communication skills, which is blessed by the universe. And my life experience was how I was living a compulsive living. And I transformed it to a conscious living after I set into the spiritual path and spent about 3 to 4 years to find my purpose.
Okay.
So my purpose is to help people move from a compulsive living, an unhappy living, to inspired, abundant and conscious living by finding their purpose and living it.
Perfect. So how do you define conscious living?
Well, now conscious living is something when you are aligned to your highest values, your highest priorities, your most important things in life, essentially your authentic life. And when you live it based on, in total alignment with your highest values. Right. So when I say, okay, to make it more clear, compulsive living is something which we live based on others' values injecting into ourselves. Like, for example, many families, parents want kids to be either a doctor or a lawyer or an, engineer. That's injected value. Whereas the actual kid may want to do something else. It may want to do accounts. It may want to be a lawyer. It may want to do music. It may want to do sports. And when the child lives by parents' injected value, it becomes a compulsive living because that's not what the child is meant to live. Its actual values could be something else. Just imagine if Sachin Tendulkar was supposed to be a lawyer or an accountant.
Yeah.
We would have missed a world-class player, right? India would have missed it.
Correct.
What if A.R. Rahman was said that, you have to go and do MBA and do marketing and sales? We would have missed a legend. That's exactly the point. These people, Sachin, Rahman, are living their true authentic life. And that's how their life is filled with inspiration, abundance and fulfillment.
Perfect. Now it makes more sense now.
Awesome.
So you mentioned that you met John Demartini in National Achievers Conference?
Absolutely, yes.
And so, what motivated you to go to South Africa and do his workshops and work with him?
Awesome. See, when I heard Dr. John Demartini in NAC, I said it was totally in alignment with my work, right? So I said my work is helping people to move from compulsive living to conscious and happy living. And Dr. Demartini's message was how to help people move from living in a lower mind or imminent mind or emotional mind to a higher mind or the rational mind to live a more balanced life from an unbalanced life. So it was absolute resonance. And I figured out that, and I need to work with this guy because he has read some 30,000 books and, traveled the world, studied all the religions, all the philosophers massively. He is kind of a Nobel Prize winner category kind of a guy, right?
Right.
And very much in my topic, right? My genre of conceptually. So I did a bit of research as to how I can travel with this guy because he was not doing any programs in India. He did programs in UK, in USA, Canada, South Africa, and Australia. So I randomly checked which place to go, and South Africa kind of worked out, and I went there. And since then, I've been going there 4 to 5 times a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what do you like about Demartini, and what processes do you like about what he teaches?
Awesome. Okay, so the prime learnings I got from Dr. Demartini in my last 18 months journey, I've kind of pretty much done his signature program, Breakthrough Experience, his high-end programs, Prophecy Experience, and the Empyrean series. So the prime message of Dr. Demartini is, first thing is, finding your highest values or highest priorities or most important things in life and aligning your life around it. First thing.
Okay.
Second one is identifying your blocks, which could be by way of emotional baggages like resentments or infatuations, or it could be fear, could be pride or shame, guilt. These things kind of hinder our growth, hinder our travel towards what we want in life. So identifying those blocks and resolving it through Demartini method, a method he has discovered by his study on various disciplines, including psychology, spirituality, philosophy, and physics, maths, across all the religions. So this is a culmination of his decades of work, which helps to take any lopsided perception and balance it totally to see both sides.
Okay.
And that gives us permission to go and live our life to the fullest. So that's the second thing. And the third one, which I learned from, is empowering yourselves in all 7 areas of life, which is spiritual, mental, vocational or career or business, financial, familial, social, and physical. Any area of your life you do not empower, others will overpower. That's the biggest message I got from him, and therefore you need to work on empowering all areas in life.
Wow.
Like if you heard me say earlier, I was doing very well only on my career and all 6 areas were suffering. And that's not life. Life is where you can balance all 7 areas. And the last one is how can you master plan your life in all 7 areas. So these are the 4 biggest learnings from him.
Wow. So in this podcast, let's talk about his top 2 teachings.
Values and Demartini method.
Values and Demartini method.
Yes.
So how do you define values?
Okay, so these are human values. It does not refer to social idealisms like honesty, integrity, sincerity, punctuality. Those are social idealisms. So here what Dr. Demartini talks about as values is human values, human priorities. So just to give you an example, for a lady for whom children is the highest value or highest priority, if she goes to a shopping mall, she'll be able to see all shops related to children. Children's clothes, children's books, children's toys, children's amusement. And she will not be giving attention to the rest. So this exactly is value. So you perceive the world, decide and act in the world based on your highest values. Right. So finding the hierarchy of values, finding their highest values and aligning life is the secret to living a happy and fulfilled life, because that's where you see fulfillment when you achieve your highest values. So for that lady, when she's able to spend time with children and bring up great children, she's going to be fulfilled, as compared to if she has to go and do a job, she's going to be unfulfilled.
Correct. So can you give an overview of what processes does Demartini teach us to find your values?
Right. So there's something called values determination, or finding your value structure. So as I said, every human being has a unique set of hierarchy of values. It's just like a thumb impression, which is unique to everybody, right? So there are 7 billion people in the world. Everyone have their own values structure, and therefore they filter the world based on their values. So though in actuality there's a single world, there are 7 billion realities for the 7 billion people based on their values. Okay, so the way he helps to find these values is a set of 13 questions. And by answering these questions, you kind of see your life from a bird's eye view. And then this helps to bring out from a subconscious level what really matters to you. And the reason you need to kind of, find out and align your life with the highest values is you are intrinsically inspired in your highest values from the soul. And therefore, you have the maximum order and organization. You are disciplined, reliable, and focused. And doing that work energizes you. For example, when Bill Gates went into his work on programming, by the end of 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, he's going to come out more energized, not tired, right? Like, you just imagine Sachin going into a cricket game and playing for 5 hours and coming out. He's not going to be tired. He's going to be more energized. Same way for Rahman after music. Or you ask any singer, at the end of singing their song, they are going to be energized, not drained. So that's a secret. That's what happens when you work on your highest values. You become energized at the end of it, and that causes you stress, which is wellness. And when you are working on your highest values, you embrace pain and pleasure in the pursuit of your goals. And whereas if you're on your lowest values, as long as you have great motivation, incentive, rewards, and reminders, you may do well. The moment you hit roadblocks, and once your motivation, incentive, reward, reminder is not greater than the roadblock, you tend to give up. Whereas when you are working on your highest values, you don't wait for external motivation, you don't wait for incentive, you don't wait for reward, you don't wait for reminder or appreciation. You get going and nothing can stop you. And that focus, laser sharp focus, enhances your achievement, your self-worth goes up, your self-confidence goes up, you become empowered, and you become a leader unfolding your mental genius. You wake up your leadership. And that's where, finding the values and living by it becomes very crucial. On the contrary, if somebody is living on their lowest values, it drains their energy. They become tired, they are disordered because they are not inspired, they hesitate, frustrate, and procrastinate. They keep expecting external motivation, external appreciation. And because they are not motivated, they are distracted by the slightest of things which is not in their highest values. And therefore, there's no focus. Their efficiency goes down, achievement goes down, self-worth goes down, and confidence goes down. They become disempowered. They self-depreciate, self-sabotage, undermine themselves. In fact, they start resenting themselves and become a follower, subordinating to others' values, which leads to a victimized living. And unhappy living causes distress and illness.
Okay. So this value determination process, how much time does it take for somebody to do it?
Now it depends. For a beginner, it may take a few hours at least. Couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours, kind of a thing to go through the process and get a hang on these values. And that's something somebody should take out the time to do that. And the best thing probably one can start off with is buying this book called Values Factor, written by Dr. John Demartini. It's available on Amazon. So first thing one can do is, pick that book and start reading it to understand what exactly values is all about. Like I gave a precursor of it, and by reading that I can get to know more about that. And then take out time to go and do the value determination, because that's going to massively help them. And your purpose or your life vision or mission lies in your top 3 areas, top 3 highest values.
Okay.
And that was kind of a validation. If you remember, I found my purpose way before meeting Dr. Demartini. And when I did the values process, it was a validation that yes, I am on right track. And for someone who has not found their purpose, they did not spend 3 to 4 years of, the journey I went through, spiritual journey and external training programs to find it out. Just by doing a values determination process is going to give them a good idea on where their purpose is, which is most of the time in the top 3 values.
Correct. So I found this book Values Factor almost 3 years back, and it was one of the best books that I have read, because
absolutely
it completely changes your perspective of many things in your life. And
absolutely.
of course I think it took me almost 2 or 3 hours to do the determination process. By the end of it was like mind blowing. And even I have recommended this process to almost like 10 of my friends, and even their life completely changed afterwards.
Absolutely. So because most of the time we live based on injected values, we believe that we have to follow the herd mentality kicks in, because we seek for validation, we seek for external appreciation and acknowledgement when we are not on your highest values. The difference is, when you would have noticed it, when you are working on your highest values, you don't wait for external appreciation. You don't wait for somebody to clap at you or reward you.
Correct. I know at least 2 people who have resigned from their jobs after doing this process.
Beautiful.
So because like for one of my clients, her top value was family, but she was chasing money. So, so there was like a complete conflict of family or money. And once she did the process, she realized that okay, now family is my top priority. Let's take finance a step back. Now she's very happy.
Beautiful. And one more thing, important thing which we can learn from this values thing is, if we are working at a particular job because we need money for running the family, and if we are not inspired at it, finding the top 3 values and linking what somebody is working currently to the highest values will help them to get inspired in what they are doing, though they may not like it at the moment.
Okay. So how do
you do that? For example, if somebody is in a corporate job and their highest values is, let's say, music, traveling, and finance, for example, or family. So right now, but they need to go to the job for to fund the lifestyle of the family. There is a way by which their current job function can be linked to their highest value of music, travel, and family. Once they get to know how doing their job will help them to maximize and fulfill their highest values of music, travel, and family, they'll get inspired to go to work and do the job. Till the time they work on it and eventually work on creating their own business around music and travel, possibly.
Okay. So basically you take your top value and your job and you link both, right?
Absolutely. You write down the job description, what are your prime job functions you're doing, and link everything to your top 3 values. How doing, for example, if somebody is an accountant, how going and spending time on doing the accounting job helps them to fulfill their top 3 values. If somebody is an engineer, how going to the engineering job helps them to fulfill their top 3 values. Then what happens is, they don't see their job as an obstacle or a block on the way to their values. They start seeing their job as a bridge, eventually taking them towards their highest values. So that changes the whole game.
Correct. So how many reasons or how many links should one write?
At least 40 to 50 links.
Okay, so 40 to 50 reasons. Item. Okay. So
40 to 50 reasons on how doing a particular task will help them fulfill their top values and top 3 values. Highest and highest rate.
Okay. So how can business owners implement this process in their companies, Senthil?
Beautiful. So for business owners to implement this kind of, to help employees get more engaged and be more collaborative at work, the best thing they can do is work towards gaining understanding on what is this whole values all about, and do the values determination to find their own hierarchy of values, and then get an maybe a corporate values workshop kind of thing organized for the company, where their employees can get a hang of what is this values all about, do the values determination, and link it to their job description, to the company's mission, to their promoters, to their bosses, peers, so that the entire thing changes from a compulsive working environment to an environment where everyone is absolutely engaged because they know how doing their job will maximize their values.
Okay, so you also do corporate values workshop, right?
Yeah, I do one-to-one consultations for individuals, for couples, for families, as well as for corporates workshops.
So let's say, for example, some business owners invite you for their workshop to their company, and
yes,
they want you to motivate their employees, and they want their employees to be aligned with their values and be inspired by their job.
Yes.
So how do you approach that?
Yeah, so okay, one key thing here is it's not really a motivation. Okay, that's a very key distinction you should look at, because motivation is something which is required for somebody who is not aligned to their values, who are not inspired. So this whole thing is to get employees to get inspired from within, so they don't need external motivation. Do you get what I'm saying? That's Correct. A subtle difference.
Got it.
Yeah. So so those who are interested to go on having this values workshop organized, well, they can get in touch with me either through you, and we can have a detailed discussion with them to understand, what is the team size, and depending upon that, various methodologies can be worked out how to take it forward. Because if it is a 5 or 6 member organization, then probably everybody can be involved. If it is a 100 member organization, initially we may involve the promoter and the top management, maybe selectively business group heads kind of a thing from the middle management. Work on that first, and then see how to take it for the entire organization.
Okay, got it. So if I have to summarize, like for business owners to ensure that their employees are inspired, so it's better for everyone to do value determination process.
Yes.
Once they identify their top 3 values.
Yes.
And write down the job description. Once they write down the job description, link their top 3 values with the job description.
Yes.
How does doing this job help them to achieve their top values?
Correct. That is for getting employees to engage in their job.
Correct.
Right. And getting employees to get aligned to the organization would be by linking it to the company mission or the organization's top 3 values, which will be the promoter's top 3 values.
Okay. Got it. So is there anything you want to add about value process, Senthil?
Okay, now values thing, it's a very important precursor before even starting with the Demartini method process, because every human being perceives the world, decides and acts on the world based on their highest values. Okay. Now we have heard about a thing called competitive advantage, right? Srini, you heard about that, right?
Come again?
Competitive advantage.
Okay, I got it. I heard about it, yes.
Yeah, so every country has a competitive advantage. For example, India, agriculture, or high intellect power by way of young manpower. For some other country in Middle East, it could be oil reserves, right?
Right.
For some other countries, it could be huge reserves of mining ores, metal ores like bauxite ores, copper ores, iron ores, and stuff like that. So when a country identifies their competitive advantage and leverages that, they become something unique and they grow to their fullest potential. Likewise, every human being has a competitive advantage which sits in their top 3 values. In fact, most of the time in the highest value. And therefore, by finding the highest value and aligning the life around it, they give themselves permission to tap into their competitive advantage and create an extraordinary life for themselves. And when they club it with dissolving any kind of emotional blocks, they give themselves permission to become a legend.
Wow. Okay, so now let's get started with Demartini method.
Sure.
So, can you give an overview of what Demartini method is all about?
Awesome. See, the Demartini method is also known as the quantum collapse process. Now, why it's called collapse process is, most of the time when we live our life, we pick up the various, things going around through our five senses, right?
Right.
By sight, by smell, by taste, by touch, by audio, right? One of these five. And these messages flows through our spinal cord to the brain, and it first hits the amygdala, which is the emotional brain or the reptilian brain or the hind brain or primitive brain, right? So this brain primarily works on pain and pressure, emotions, flight or fight response. And when we live a compulsive living, most of the time we decide from our amygdala, from our emotional brain. And therefore we become polarized or one-sided or biased or lopsided, which means we see just one side of an equation. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine somebody is in a college, okay?
Okay.
And they are drawn towards a girl. Let's take in this example of a boy, a college boy, and he is drawn towards a girl and he is attracted towards a girl. Now what's happening is he is seeing only one side of the girl, which means he may be attracted to her beauty, a mental beauty, emotional beauty, or spiritual beauty, right? He is ignorant or unconscious of the other side of her. And therefore, he feels that she's all good and no bad. Right? Now, this exactly is called one-sided. It's an infatuation, attracted towards the positives in a person. It's a situation where you feel that everything is positive, nothing is negative. Now let's take another example of somebody working in an organization and they have a terrible boss, a grumpy boss, and they hate the person. Now what's happening is they are conscious about all the negatives of the boss, which could be physical ugliness, mental ugliness, spiritual ugliness, emotional ugliness, because of anger, arrogance, and whatever. So this again is untrue. They are only seeing one side of him. They are seeing all negatives and they are perceiving no positive. Whereas in reality, positivity and negativity always coexist. They are like two poles of the magnet, North Pole and South Pole. You cannot break a magnet and just have one pole. Even if you break a magnet, you will still have a North Pole and a South Pole. Same way, every person in their life, they have both sides. They have both good and bad. They are nice and mean. They are hero and the villain. They are considerate and inconsiderate. There are times when they are peaceful, there are times they are ruffled. Now, this is the one-sided life which we live in. And what happens when we approach our life based on this one-sided perceptions, it becomes more of a compulsive living, and therefore it stops us from unfolding our full potential. What Demartini method process helps us, it is a process which helps us to see both sides, to see the unseen. Right? For example, when you are attracted, let's say you have a teacher, let's say you have a spiritual teacher or an intellectual teacher to whom you are completely attracted to. So what happens is you put them on a pedestal. You look up at them and you self-minimize. Now what happens when you are doing that? You are not giving yourself permission to unfold your full potential. By doing the Demartini method process on your spiritual teacher or your guru whom you look up to, you will start owning up the traits in him, and therefore you will look at your teacher on par with you as an extension of you, as a spiritual relative, as a fellow human being, when you start owning up the traits by doing the Demartini method. Right? The other side is you hate somebody terribly. Right? Let's take an example, like you hate someone because of some nasty thing they did towards you, and you resent them, you hate them, you don't want to see them. So here what's happening is you are judging the individual based on a negative perception, and you are putting them on a pit. You are self-exaggerating yourself, considering that you are better than the person, and you look down at that person saying that he is a terrible guy. Now when you do the Demartini method, see, if you continue to live like this person will occupy time and space in your mind, will not allow you to express your full potential. And when you do the Demartini method, you will start looking up the good sides, the benefits of what happened because of this guy. And when you start owning up the traits where you have done the same thing in your life, you again see that this is not a terrible guy, he is just another human being like you, with goods and bads, with both sides. And then your spiritual connect happens, and you start seeing him in equity with you and you own the traits. The more and more you own the traits of the external world, you grow in your quantum in terms of your maturity and go to the next level. And your awareness expands. When your awareness expands and these things no more occupy time and space in your mind, you give yourself permission to stay with clarity, focus, which enhances efficiency, productivity, results, growth, development, happiness, and you enter into the upward spiral of growth and development and fulfillment.
So when to do this Demartini method, Senthil?
See, you can do it anytime. Anytime you feel that you are having some kind of a resentment towards somebody, some kind of a dislike or hatred. What Demartini says is, if you resent somebody, that person shows up in your life to mirror you to you, which means to reflect something which you are disowning in yourself. Most of the time we hate somebody for a particular trait, action or inaction. That particular trait, action or inaction is inside us, but we are ignorant of that. We are unconscious of that. And that person shows up to remind us that it's in us until we get conscious and equilibrate ourselves.
Okay.
And once you do it, once you own it up, then it's like, you are giving yourself permission to enhance your self-worth. Self-worth increases the more and more you make people inclusive of yourself. Okay. And yeah, what Dr. Demartini says is there are about 4,000 plus human traits. Almost half of them positive, half of them negative. Like, nice and mean, kind and cruel, considerate, inconsiderate, stuff like that. And he says every human being has all the traits.
Right.
So when we look at somebody and resent them for certain negative traits, which we label as negative, those are still a part of us. And when we look up at somebody and say, this guy is awesome, this guy is so inspiring, charismatic, that is again a part of us. When we look up at somebody, we are too humble to admit that it's in us. And when we resent somebody, we are too proud to admit that it's in us. Okay. And when we own it up, that's when we give ourselves permission to grow to the next level.
So what do you mean by own the traits?
Okay, so owning the traits is when you are looking at some person having a particular trait, behavioral trait or an action. If it is a good trait, it is easy for us to say that, I like to have it or I have it in me. But if it is a negative trait, most of the time we don't want to accept that it is a part of us. Okay, let's say for example, you hate a guy for saying lies, right? Mm-hmm. That guy always lies. I hate that guy because he doesn't speak truth. He always lies. He never speaks truth. But if you look deep, every human being during their life, they speak truth and lies, depending upon the context.
Correct.
Right. See, they may have a justification that in order to have a good thing done or with a good intention, I lied. But eventually, everybody lies as much as we speak truth. But we don't want to own it. But when we do the method and go and find times where we have displayed and demonstrated that trait, then we figure out that, oh my God, even I have lied as much as this guy, and therefore he's no different than me.
Okay, got it.
Sorry. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, got your point, yeah.
Awesome.
So how much time will this process take, approx?
Okay, so initially this process may take anywhere between a couple of hours to, depending upon the intensity of the emotional baggage. If it has been there for a very long time, for example, I have worked with people who have been carrying resentment on their divorced husband for decades together, 20 years, 10 years, 20 years. So those kind of traits take quite a bit of time to dissolve. Sometimes it may not even happen in one session of 2 hours. It may run into multiple sessions. But on an average, anywhere between 2 to 3 hours is a reasonable time to dissolve traits in the beginning. And once you start mastering it, you can do it in an hour.
Okay, perfect. So how can business owners use Demartini method?
Okay, so business owners can use Demartini method for both their own personal empowerment by releasing their emotional baggages. And they can also use it to help people in their organization who are suffering from any kind of baggages and therefore their productivity suffers, to help them to go through the process and dissolve the lopsided perceptions so that they are able to give their best to the job. So Demartini method again can be done in small groups of 3 to 5. I won't recommend doing Demartini method on large scale workshop of like values workshop can be done for a large scale 20, 30, 50, 100. But Demartini method, best thing to do in small groups, anywhere between 3 to 10, max 15, not more than that. It can be. I've seen the maximum impact comes when people do it on. I do Demartini method consultations 1-to-1 for couples, for families, and for corporates in small groups of anywhere between 3 to 10, max 15. So it's a 3 to 4 hour session when we do it on a session based, but the first thing it's like a 1 day session where I share the principles of Demartini method, the basis of it, the science behind it, and then we do the process, the practical part of clearing the highest resented trait in a particular person. To begin with, once you dissolve the highest resented trait, it becomes easy for you to work on the other traits which are lesser intense.
Okay, fine. So can you give any one example of how you worked with your client, especially business owners?
Sure. Okay. So I was working with a business owner who was having an SME kind of an organization in the business of providing services, technical services, training services, a combination of multiple support services to organizations. Right. So this gentleman, for some reason, was comparing himself to his brother, whom he perceived as super intelligent, as well as super arrogant. Okay. So he hated his brother for the arrogance, and he was infatuated to the brother for intelligence. And therefore, what he was doing was, he was saying that I'm not as arrogant as my brother, and therefore he was trying to be kind and soft to everybody in his organization, which doesn't work all the time, right?
Right.
You have to whack when it is required, and you have to applaud and pat when it's required. A combination of pat and whack is what works in real life, right? Across the group. There are certain employees who respond to pat, and there are certain employees who respond to whack, right?
Right.
So you need to play both. But what he was doing is, because he was self-exaggerating, comparing to his brother as being arrogant, and he therefore wanted to be soft and kind and nice and polite to everybody, he was not able to extract the best of work from the organization, because he was always kind of nice, and then people were taking him for granted. On the other side, he was infatuated to his brother, thinking that he is super intelligent, and therefore he subordinated and thought he was not as intelligent as his brother. And therefore, anything which requires high intelligent, brainstorming and solutions, he used to take a back seat and allow other people in the organization to run it. Whereas he had it, but he was not. So this is called a confirmation bias on what you see, and a disconfirmation bias on what you don't see, right? When he saw arrogance in his brother, there was a confirmation bias on the arrogance, and he thought he was not. This confirmation bias that he is not arrogant. And when he was looking at his brother as highly intelligent, there was a confirmation bias on his brother that he is intelligent, and a disconfirmation bias on himself that he is not intelligent. We went through the process. It was a 1 day session, First up, we had discussions on the principles, and then we started working on this. And halfway through, he started saying that, you know what, Senthil, my animosity towards my brother has started diluting when we went for a coffee break in between. And he had not spoken to his brother for many years. He was not in touch with his brother because he hated him, right?
Okay.
And we did this process, and by the end of it, he was left in tears. And when he saw that he was equally intelligent as much as his brother. So we went and found instances and moments where he had displayed and demonstrated super intelligence, right? And he was shocked. He said, "Oh my God, I'm as intelligent as my brother. I didn't even see it." And the second thing was, we went and found out, it's difficult to own up a negative trait. You agree with me, Srini?
Yes, I am.
Our mind will not allow us to say that we are bad, right? So it took time for him to go and find out where he was arrogant in his life. And slowly we started pulling out, there was a little bit of arrogance with friends, and then in family, and then with children and spouse, and in organization, and then he found his whole life as much he was good, there was arrogance as well. Only thing is, he was ignorant. He was not seeing. And so by the end of it, he saw that, oh my God, I'm as good as my brother and I'm as bad as my brother. Like a stupid, I've been hating him and not talking to him for all these years. And then at the end of the session, he dialed his brother's number. He wanted to speak. He couldn't resist. Right?
Wow.
And his brother's wife took the phone, and it seems his brother was sleeping, and she said he will call back. She will get him to call back. And that night he messaged me, around 10:30 in the night. We ended the session by around 9 o'clock. By 10:30 in the night, he messages me saying that, Senthil, miracle happened. My brother spoke to me in a tone he has never spoken in that tone before. He was super polite and courteous. And it's miraculous. Thank you so much, is the message he sent. And what Dr. Demartini says is, you can never change your perception about a person without actually changing the person real time, though they may be geographically far away from you. And that exactly happens. He was in Chennai in my office and we did a session and his brother was somewhere in Belgaum. And he changed real time.
Correct. So that's amazing process.
Yes. And that gave him permission to go and be both kind and cruel, nice and mean, good and bad, as required to get things done. And he saw a total shift in the way he was organizing work, and the productivity started enhancing and his business started growing. And he started getting equally involved in intelligent decision making as well, because he now figured out that he is as intelligent as his brother.
Correct. So the first time I learned about Demartini method was from the book Breakthrough Experience.
Beautiful.
So that's the book I think I have read the maximum times. I have read over 40 times till now.
Oh, wonderful. I think you would have figured out at least something new every time you read next time.
Right. I mean, like, I have set a goal to do Breakthrough Experience in this year or the next year.
Yes. Wow, wonderful.
But I mean, like, if you are, for somebody who's listening to this podcast, I mean, if you are just starting out with Demartini method, I either recommend that you start with the book Breakthrough Experience by Demartini, or you can contact Senthil for one-to-one consultation.
Beautiful.
And so before we close the podcast, Senthil, like what were some of the books that changed your life?
Great. So some of the books which added massively in my journey. Couple of books by my spiritual teacher Mahadriya. One is called Most and More.
Most and More.
Yeah, by Mahadriya. And another one is Unposted Letter.
Okay. I heard about that book.
Yeah. So these two. And I would definitely recommend Values Factor.
Okay.
And Breakthrough Experience of Dr. John Demartini.
Okay.
Right, and there was, in fact, all the 8 to 10 books of Dr. Demartini are awesome. Another one thing which I would recommend from Dr. Demartini is a book called Gratitude Effect.
Okay.
Yeah, so the reason I'm saying this is, Srini, at any moment you have any kind of disturbance in your life, like a magic, you can shift that disturbance by directing your intelligence to find something you're grateful for at that moment. Gratitude and disturbance cannot coexist. The secret to overcome any disturbance is finding something to which you have gratitude for.
Wow.
Something you are grateful for. And the Gratitude Effect is an awesome book to, it's a tool which can quickly incorporate to come out of disturbances.
Okay.
Gratitude Effect by Dr. John Demartini. And one more thing I would definitely recommend for entrepreneurs is the book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Okay. It's an amazing book as well, yes.
Amazing stuff.
So, like, out of all the books that you have read or you found them useful, like, what's the one book you would recommend to your podcast listeners?
Okay, so it's very difficult to narrow down to one book because I've almost got value from all the books. But if you ask me to say which are the top ones would be the values factor, which I said, the Demartini method, gratitude effect, success principles from Jack Canfield. A couple of more books which massively helped me is You Can Win by Shiv Khera. It's a very old book, but still it's an amazing book. One more thing is The Secret by Rhonda Byrne.
Okay. So thank you, Senthil. So before we close this podcast, like what's the one action step you recommend to our podcast listeners that they can take in next 24 to 48 hours?
Beautiful. So the first thing what I would recommend is to pick up this book, The Values Factor, and go through it. And the second thing which they can do immediately is they can go to YouTube and Google Dr. John Demartini on values. They will get quite a bit of videos on that, and they can watch that, right? That they can do immediately. And I would definitely recommend for them to pick the book Values Factor and read it. You have read it, right? Multiple times you found benefit from that. And those who are interested to up-level their expertise and mastery on, values and Demartini method as a part of peak performance, enhancing their peak performance, whether be it their corporate job or be it their entrepreneurial, the business venture, then they are most welcome, and I would love to offer them consulting on one-to-one basis or group basis, and they can definitely get in touch with you, be it a values workshop or a Demartini method session.
Perfect. So what I will do is I will post your contact details in the blog post.
Sure.
And in the show notes of the podcast. So what's the best way our listeners can get in touch with you, Senthil?
Yeah, so they can get in touch with me, my website, infinitepotentials.in, or they can email me, senthil@infinitepotentials.in, or, they can even call me.
Perfect. So I'll post your website and your email address in the website, my website.
Absolutely.
So it was an amazing experience listening to you, Senthil.
Thank you, Srini.
And thank you for coming to my podcast. I look forward to meeting you soon, Senthil.
Thank you so much, Srini. My pleasure. It was great being on your show and sharing my learnings from Dr. John Demartini, and best wishes to you and the listeners.
Thank you.
And one closing message to the listeners is those areas of your life which you do not empower, others will overpower.
Perfect.
And therefore work towards empowering all areas of your life and give yourself permission to do something extraordinary on planet Earth.
Thank you very much, Senthil.
Thanks, Srini. Good day to you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you like the episode, please subscribe to the podcast. Thank you very much. I am Srinivas Vakati. See you in the next episode.